happening at Blizzard, just to kind of give us an idea, because I'm really hopeful at this point. If anybody's seen my last videos or some of the clips from that, I'm hopeful that guys like Asmongold and some of the other people that are being super critical of the game are wrong, and I'm hoping that after seeing what Sloot and some of like the Raiders have been talking about, and even sometimes with Bellular, at least they're being a little more, I would say, like, I don't know, positive on like, hey, maybe things might go this way, maybe not. So I've been trying to keep up with Bellular's videos too. He did release a new one today, so I'm gonna react to this with the live stream. Then I can clip this over and throw it on YouTube. I am subscribed to him. I do love his videos. So he says, uh-oh, 100 layoffs, Activision's rising influence over Blizzard, and a new low for the WoW store. I have a feeling that's about the mounts. I haven't seen this yet, but I wanted to react live for you guys so we could see what this is all about. Again, I absolutely love this guy. I like to argue some of the points that Asmongold makes because I think he gets really emotional. Bellular doesn't. Most of the time, he's cool as a cucumber and just kind of breaks everything down by his statistics. So let's see what he has to say.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the World of Warcraft video. Well, out of the frying pan and into the fire. This
ain't gonna be good.
You know, it's funny, I'm almost overconscious that this video can, you know, sort of set the tone for the year, and I really don't want it to be like that. So here's the deal. Just before we all broke for the holidays, Blizzard unveiled a really manipulative business practice that is straight out of Mickey Mouse's playbook. Now, we then also began to see a bunch of the Activision-directed cost-cutting, along with a fresh report that gave us more background.
Wait, hold on. Is he talking about that BS where Disney keeps saying that, like, they're gonna put things in the Disney vault when you can very easily still buy everything while it's in rotation? Is that what he's comparing it to?
And of course, often companies, they choose to release bad news just before a major holiday or a big event. And that's a classic move because, yeah, the bad news is still going to sting, but people are going to be busy with other things, they're going to forget, and all be back to normal. Well, while I technically was off work, I'm not letting Blizzard off the hook for this one. I think if this coming year for me was to have a theme, I think it would be honesty unpolished. As Blizzard begin to slip, it's just all the more important to just go directly in, just straightforward with them. But then equally, it's also important to not be carried away by any given narrative and be thrown in a direction. So I expect this will be a year both of strongly positive and strongly negative coverage, as really the company is just going from PR blunder to PR blunder.
See, even though things have been really bad and he's admitting that stuff has really not been choice or has really not been awesome at this point, he brings up the PR blunders. Did you notice the way he delivered it? Where like it's going to be super positive and then there's going to be super negatives. I feel like he does more statistical reporting, even though you can tell he does feel a certain type of way about it, but he's like, here's some of this, here's some of this, here's column A, here's column B, and there's been 3 times now he said, but we're just going in, boys, so this one must end up being really bad. And based on starting with the store, if that's what he's talking about, then yeah, I don't feel like this one's going to be super positive.
But while that's happening, BFA is poised for an 8-2 that, at least on paper, does seem to be going very much in the right direction.
Yes.
So let's kick off this extreme fun video with the Disney Vault, or sorry, should I say the Blizzard Archive, because yes, Blizzard Entertainment are emulating one of the most widely criticized business practices out there. Disney would do this thing where they'd release their content for a few years after cinemas, and then they'd cease production, and they'd just halt releases for a number of years, only to then come out with a special edition re-release. And this practice would allow them to create artificial scarcity and additional sale events. And this is all at the expense of the customer's convenience. No wonder people would want to pirate their content, because after all, piracy is a symptom of a service problem. Now, Blizzard's mount sale for the winter
never saw it like that.
Very similar, but just it's
yeah,
so
this was
on
garbage.
Nose of beggars belief. So the See You Later bundle features a number of store mounts, pets, and 3 transmog helms. Now, bundles have existed in the past, but well, the difference is that these are all being removed from the store after the event. Now, remember that paying to unlock an item, well, it's an item that's already in the game. There is 0 cost to it being on the store. So why remove it? Well, you remove it to create artificial scarcity and to generate more purchases, because players might be afraid that it's their last chance to own these mounts. Now look, all sales is a form of manipulation. Hell, most things are a form of manipulation, be it stated or be it overt. But sometimes the level of manipulation crosses a commonly agreed upon moral threshold, and often that is a moral threshold that we legislate on. and we've made such things, some things illegal, such as, say, misleading customers. Now, this means that often companies need to have fine print, and that's great. We have the fine print. We know what's up. But the fine print of this bundle is just so funny because it's not even it's not in fine print. It is the footer of the announcement. So here's the quote. We're sending 9 of our Blizzard shop and in-game store items into hibernation on January 6th. But before they go, you can purchase a time-limited bundle and save even more. Items in the See You Later bundle may return to the Blizzard shop and in-game shop at some point in the future. It's so clear. I mean, wow. These mounts are, they're going into hibernation,
Blizz,
but for no other reason than to aid a sale pitch. Remember that these mounts cost nothing to have in the store. It's not even like you download a file when you purchase them. The file's already on your computer. Now, when a new store mount is released, it gets a special feature on the store. So it's not like these old mounts are taking up that much visual space or taking away from the new mounts on the store. The reasoning behind this becomes even more apparent once you look at the mount ownership statistics. As for the other stuff, it's a similar situation, but they're all quite old and they don't hold up visually to Blizzard's modern work. It's clear that these things were just not selling well, and Blizzard have realized that while they are in the store, they're not shifting copies, so in a move to increase their perceived value, they've just made them artificially scarce. Chances are that barely anyone actually wants these mounts, but because of the sales event and the fear of never being able to have them again, that's just going to tip people over the edge. Now, of course, they likely will plan on selling these again. Like, there's the legal disclaimer is there. It's not called the Goodbye Bundle. It's called the See You Later Bundle. We'll see them later. Of that, I have little doubt. As the time on this promotion runs out, all I just want to say is this. Please don't support this. If we reward these tactics by participating, we just encourage Blizzard to continue. And in a world where, as we're going to see later in this video, in a world where stuff's a bit more controlled by the finance department, the last thing we should be doing is giving the finance department more ammunition.
Now, time out. I'm going to bring this up because I did criticize Asmongold for what he had said on his reaction to, I think it was the other storm out, the Fox thing. You notice what Bellular said right there. He said, don't support this. He went right out and just said, guys, this is trashy. I feel that this is trashy. It's my opinion. And if you're any sort of aligned with how I see this, or if you understand what's going on, don't support this. It's trash. Now, they have every right to bundle whatever they want to together, and as long as the disclaimer is there, like he said, it's not going to technically be illegal, or however you can wordplay around that. But at least he's saying, guys, this is garbage, don't do it. Like, way to, say something that paves the way for things. Like, kind of, if you're going to curb your audience and get them fired up about something, then don't leave it off at, man, I'm mad. What are you going to do about it? Bellular just said it. Don't pay into it. Don't feed the beast. If they're going to keep doing this and keep treating us like we're 12-year-olds with zero attention span and mommy and daddy's credit card, don't feed into the BS.
Now, look, I mentioned finances. So it's time to talk about the influence of Activision over Blizzard. Now, this comes once again from one of Jason Schreier's reports, which, interesting. The first one was just his name was enough to make people throw it in the bin, which is kind of interesting because those people also seem to be the same people who are the harshest against Blizzard. Now, look, as I've said many times, his work is often very solid, especially his investigative work. Often, he does make a bit of a tit out of himself on Twitter, that's for sure. But it's possible for someone to do both good and bad things.
I've heard that.
We shouldn't let those things cancel each other out. We shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Kotaku, yeah, they can publish a lot of trash, but they can also publish good things. So we need to take articles for, what they are in isolation. And given what else we've heard, and the previous Blizzard article, and all of the other investigative pieces, like for Mass Effect Andromeda and all that stuff, yeah, this stuff is fairly accurate. So even if you don't like the messenger, I think it's worth paying attention to the message. So the news broke via Eurogamer that Blizzard were expanding a voluntary redundancy program in their Irish offices, mainly affecting support staff.
I believe I watched his video about that.
The idea is that you get someone to leave of their own volition by essentially taking a deal. Now, for the staff, it's good because they get quick money, and that's brilliant if they want to make a career change, but they're also worried about their stability. For the company, it means that their least dedicated staff feel free to leave, and it means they don't have to lay people off, non-voluntarily, and that can be really expensive. And of course, by having those people go, it decreases their monthly burn rate. As a way of cutting costs, it's actually pretty great, and it is very employee friendly, but it's also a bit revealing. Now, if a company is in a severe financial situation, then, layoffs may happen. But if a company is in a position where it basically is financially secure, but wants to tighten up its operation, that's when you'll see a program like this. So it does not mean that Blizzard are going out of business, but it does mean that yes, they are looking to cut their long-term costs in non-development areas. Now, this program called Career Crossroads has actually existed for years. The only thing that's new is they are offering it to a wider segment of staff, including more junior staff, and it seems to have had its financial benefits be...
I've really got to, figure out how to make it where I don't see these anymore. You can just spend some money
now,
being a douche.
This is all backed up by Jason's report, which again is sourced from many Blizzard employees. So, as we found out last time, Blizzard's new Activision transplant CFO told employees at an all-hands meeting that their big goal is to cut costs and shift more product. And this has resulted in the layoffs that I mentioned earlier, as well as the scaling back of Heroes of the Storm development and the sudden axing of its esports plans. Plans which, seemingly as of BlizzCon this year, were poised to go ahead. And that does make me think that this very much is a transition period that is ramping up. Now, on that topic...
I heard about that from... I think Bellular covered it, but I saw some of the reaction. I would think there was... Josh Priest may have said something about that, but they really did do those guys shitty. I realized Heroes of the Storm wasn't... I didn't personally like the game. I didn't play the game, and I didn't know why there was a esport thing around it. And I mean, I understand maybe that was a pretty poor business structure to try to launch, whatever was it called, Dorm Room Heroes or something like that. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, but they could have at least been honest with those guys. If you make a bad idea, you got to make up for the bad idea. You got to cut, for a business situation, you got to cut the fat where the fat's not making the full meal any better. Completely understand that. But I feel like they could have at least given those boys a heads up, or those teams a heads up in general, that, hey, that money was going to go away. Because when people have money, they spend it on shit. And you can make or break somebody's livelihood doing that, not being full disclosure about stuff.
Jason's sources report internal rumors of layoffs in the new year. Now, that's interesting because layoffs being, talked about in this way, that doesn't seem voluntarily, like it's a voluntary thing, like in the Cork office. So, yeah, what we see is non-development roles being axed while they try to hire more development roles. They're cutting costs, they're shifting more product. It's pretty clear that with Morheim out of the way and more Activision influence, they are just trying to tighten up their operation. Yeah. Now, what does this mean for games and developers at Blizzard and BFA?
Now that Daddy's gone.
In Jason's most recent report, 3 sources talked about how the finance department has more power within Blizzard than ever. One source said that their people are now attending more meetings, especially meetings that they would not have previously been involved in. So it seems systematically that this is indicating that the finance team is being more integrated with lower and lower level decisions at Blizzard. Now, if that seems like a bit of a worrying thing, then I think you should really listen to the next source. So, here's the quote. A lot of decisions now are being driven by business folks, marketing and finance folks. There's a real struggle now between developers and the business people. Strategic decisions are being driven by the finance group. And that's the worrying bit. Strategy. That's the long-term vision of the company. That's the direction that the ship is sailing in. This is affecting things such as the scope of a game. Not only the resources that can be allocated to a given project, but the actual likely design of a project itself, such that it would require fewer resources. Now, it's time to talk about the 80-20 principle. Generally, it asserts that 80% of the result comes from 20% of the work. And for the most part, it's actually quite true. Here's an example. With my time, while I might spend 70 hours a week working...
All right, hold on, Bellular. Before I get any further into that, the one thing that tells me is somebody in whatever the Activision, the overmind that is Activision that was trying to break things down piece by piece, they won't make a change unless they see a deficit. Same reason why they make... I was in the Army for a long time. We always make that joke. There's not a technical manual, or there's not a rule because somebody just thought it up most of the time. It's because somebody fucked something up. Somebody has done something stupid. So they make that rule to make them not do that same stupid thing. Activision must have a little bit of a similar idea, and in other platforms, maybe not necessarily WoW, they must have had people that were just running wild with money that they were issued and doing fuck all, doing whatever they wanted to, and then it maybe wasn't bringing back the results that they were looking for. So in a way I can understand that, but the only way that that works is if the people responsible for the checkbooks have a clue what is going on with the community and with the game. If you're just giving it to all these people that are crunching statistics and all of a sudden the accountant has more credibility than your game designers or your people that are putting the time into making things fun, and they pinch pennies too hard on those game devs, or they start pulling money out of things that just need to be there, the game is actually DOA. Like, the second that this whole thing starts to implement itself and the finance team is way heavier than what the developers, the game designers, and everybody else that has made this game so good, if that gets out of hand, and that's not, a balance isn't found for that, then we're all in some shit. Like, that part I agree with. I've seen situations like that happen with bigger companies before. I can't think of any examples. Locally, I've seen things like that. The Chicago metropolitan area, a lot of our stuff downstate, we've seen a lot of things that all of a sudden the math was more important than the substance. And when you get to that point, it's literally like lighting a long fuse and just waiting for everything to blow up at the end. Then they just start trying to grab all those pennies, all those dimes and nickels, and they want that consistency now, and they don't care what happens in the future. That concerns me a little bit, just like what it points to. But let's keep the middle ground there. Hope that somebody in that office, even though Morheim's gone, let's hope somebody in that office goes, guys, this is not how we do games. We have, a level that we have to keep.
In the channel, maybe only 15 or 10 of those are actually spent writing, and ultimately, writing is the single most important thing that I do for the channel. Another way of framing the 80-20 principle is saying that perfection is the enemy of just good enough. It's the idea that at a certain point, working on something just doesn't make sense. You should just launch it out there and move on. Now, these are principles that personally I live my life by, but they have their dangers.
Especially for music.
I feel that I can make those calls because I intimately understand every aspect of what I'm doing with this channel and just in general, and why people watch my content. But moving back to Blizzard, well, if a developer is appraising their game, they'll be able to decently tell when they put enough work into something that they can put it out the door, to work out where those diminishing returns are for doing further work. But here's the problem. A developer who has great understanding of their game can do that. But if that appraisal is being done by people who are above the developer and are not in a development role and don't really have that great of an understanding of the game, they're going to struggle to make as good a call in that situation. Essentially, finance people having too much control over the game design strategies of Blizzard is very likely not going to be good for the quality of their games. Now, I'm sure you've ran into the video of Steve Jobs talking about John Scully's disastrous tenure at Apple, and yeah, I think it is actually a really important video. It's
That's
worth
the
listening
Pepsi dude,
to,
right?
So let's roll it.
John came from PepsiCo, and they at most would change their product, once every 10 years. I mean, to them, a new product was like a new size bottle, right? So if you were a product person, you couldn't change the course of that company very much. So who influenced the success of PepsiCo? The sales and marketing people. Therefore, they were the ones that got promoted, and therefore they were the ones that ran the company. Well, for PepsiCo, that might have been okay, but it turns out the same thing can happen in technology companies that get monopolies, like, IBM and Xerox. If you were a product person at IBM or Xerox, so you make a better copy or a better computer. So what? When you have a monopoly market share, the company's not any more successful. So the people that can make the company more successful are sales and marketing people. And they end up running the companies. And the product people get driven out of the decision-making forums. And the companies forget what it means to make great products. Sort of the product sensibility and the product genius that brought them to that monopolistic position gets rotted out by people running these companies who have no conception of a good product versus a bad product.
God,
they have no conception of the craftsmanship that's required to take a good idea and turn it into a good product.
Look what Apple did.
And they really have no feeling in their hearts, usually, about wanting to really help the customers.
So that's talking about Apple and Pepsi, but as applied to gaming, my worry is that The developer's first goal is to create something that's fun and that's engaging. They're going to design that from first principles, guided by an understanding of their players' emotional experience and how that drives them to play the game more. When the marketing types are driving these decisions, well, they want to also create something that's fun and engaging. They're not actually demon vampire people, but the difference is they're going to go and look at old numbers, and they're going to work out what the most cost-effective way is based on what has previously worked. And that's really the crux of it. Creatives make new numbers. Business people follow old numbers. As the business gets more involved, we're likely going to see a decrease in innovation and an increase in content that's strongly following the 80-20 principle, but with that 80-20 analysis maybe not being done by people, well, maybe by people who don't know the 80 from the 20. That's the struggle that Blizzard's developers face, and if they're not careful, the company's going to lose its unique status within the industry.
So, okay, hold on one second. I have one interjection to that kind of sliding down the doom and gloom thing. You go to any channels or any videos about the current state of World of Warcraft, right? And you see any of these guys that have been around for years and years and years, since vanilla, some, right at Cataclysm, some at BC. Most of these guys point backwards, right? Like everybody's like, oh, it's never been as good as it was in Lich King. It's never been, the raids haven't been good since Ulduar. The system that they were using for all the everybody always talks about things in the past that were just stellar, like that they missed so much that they would instantly, they think if it was just re-implemented, the game would be fixed, things that they missed. One thing maybe he may be overlooking a little bit is if they are actually looking at statistics, the ones that did the best are the ones everybody misses. So, I mean, this could go one of two ways. Don't freaking, hold me to the gospel of what happens there if I'm making an assessment here, but if the finance people look backwards, what's the part of WoW that made the most money? A lot of people would still love this game if the old systems were still there. I've seen hundreds of guys, hundreds of streamers say that they get sick and tired. In fact, I think Josh Priest did it. He said they get to a point where they know that a system is messed up, even though, like for Legion, I think he was talking about Legion. He says, we know a system's messed up. The one we just had worked perfect, but they just refuse to go back. What if this is the straw that breaks the camel's back and the finance guys are like, yo, we need to go back. We screwed something up. Go back. 100%. We have to go back to what you were doing right there. Do that. Then they can make a couple of subtle improvements to try to level things out. But what if that's what ends up happening? See, there's always, even though that's a far-fetched thing, the chances of that happening, I understand, are so low. I get it. But think about that for a second. If Bellular's right, and they go through and look at just the statistics, then maybe the game's going to shift back to how it was as opposed to where it's at now, which is this, whether we like it or not, it's them trying to be creative and try to put new things into an old thing that everybody has the nostalgia factor for that they're now missing. That calculation could end us back up where the game is where everybody misses with some new, but building off of the things that worked. I mean, there's always a maybe.
Just look at Activision. They streamlined their business to be a small number of IPs. Large segments of their revenue come from something like, say, Destiny 2. And if those franchises, if any of that
you mean
small
Call of Duty?
number
Come on,
of franchises that they have start to struggle, you're going to see a big hit on the company. Now, I don't exactly want to bring in stocks at the minute because, especially if you look at, say, the FANG stocks, they've all went down. The markets have not been good over the last while.
We all know who to thank for that.
Say, look at Activision Blizzard, it's trading at 50% of its value. It is also worth bearing in mind that, I mean, we seem to be in a bear market, put it that way, so that should be
nice slide.
Of salt.
Well done.
But that's really the point here. With this video, I know it's like one of the first ones of the new year. It's when we all want to feel happy about the future and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, when I see Blizzard do something like the Blizzard Vault, I can't not talk about that. You know, if I admit that, I feel like I just feel like I'm doing everyone wrong. So, yeah, there you go. I guess a pretty hardcore video, right? Hopefully, stuff like this won't happen as much in the future. I wish I could say that I thought that was likely, I don't really think I do. I am generally quite worried right now about where things are going to go. One thing I do know for sure, it's going to be an interesting year to follow Blizzard, to do coverage for them. There's going to be a lot to talk about. I think my worry is that it's going to be the stuff that I feel compelled to talk about because I think it's a problem, and not the stuff that I feel compelled to talk about because it's like passionate and exciting. And that's ideally what this channel exists
Make
for.
sure to
So
follow this man.
let me know what you
Make
think
sure to
about
get
all
on
this
his
stuff down
Patreon.
in those comments.
I love his
As
content.
much as this is a bit odd, I hope you're off to a great start with this new year. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Okay, again, I know that it's like, he literally could have just put, the start of his video should have been, I come to you guys with a heavy heart. Because it just seems like everything about his person, and I've seen it with a bunch of the streamers, a bunch of the guys that do content for YouTube, they just seem so broken. But like I said, think about what we're saying, think about what everybody keeps talking about, and then see the result. The best thing to do right now, look what happened with Destiny 2. They literally fixed it. The game is fun. Like, it wasn't, and now it is, right? So, I mean, we can't look at the other things that Activision have done without looking at the few high spots. Because there are a couple. I really enjoy Destiny 2 right now. They murdered that and literally robbed everybody on release for D2. But now it's great. I really enjoy playing that game. I'm probably going to play some tonight, actually, for Drunk FPS night. But I think everyone needs to chill. I understand that there's a lot to talk about, and it makes for great content. That's one thing that he's 1000% head on about. Makes for great content. Makes for great conversation pieces. Everything makes sense. Why would we not talk about that? But consider what everybody is complaining about and what you hear from all raiders, PvPers. I know Mythic Plus wasn't there then, but the other people that enjoyed that content. If the finance team opens the books and goes, hey, so after Kata, when you guys fought the Lich King, and there was Titans involved, and you had this, and this system set up, you guys are killing it. Why don't we go back to something more like that? It's always a chance. There's always a small, finite possibility that we end up back in a better spot than we did here with everybody having creative ideas that people just crucify these guys for. Best cause of action, if you're gonna quit, that's one thing I'll give Bellular credit for. He said, don't buy into it. Don't buy into their BS. This is shady. Don't do it. He didn't tell people to quit the game. At the back of his mind, there could be some upsides. And I think everybody else just needs to snap a beer, grab a drink. If you're raiding still, keep raiding. If you're PvPing, keep PvPing. Sloot said Desire Lore looks amazing. The clips that I've seen from that raid looks like the raiders are about to be happy again. If the Azerite system is fixed, bravo Ian, you said you were going to fix it. We're about to find out if you did. I'm excited still. I'm not going to let the rest of these thunderclouds and rain and everybody else shitting all over what's currently going on really mess with me. But little parts of that, even though I know he really felt to me like he didn't want to make that video, there's a small beacon of hope somewhere in that message. Let's hope that maybe we go that way instead of continuing to be upset every single day that something that we enjoy doing so much feels like it's dying right in front of us. I'm going to end the stream here. I appreciate you guys that did tune in. I don't even have my dashboard up, so I haven't seen how many people have seen this. Throw me a like and a follow. There are new panels on the Twitch, so you guys can go to the other locations. I'm going to get this compressed, get it thrown on YouTube, and probably start playing some D2. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys in a sec.